Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null, broadcasting and video streaming live from our studios in New York City. Now, you won't be able to watch us immediately because we're having a little difficulty connecting with Facebook. However, we will post today's program so you can see it in this magnificent floral background from nature a little later on this afternoon. Today we're going to talk about oils, essential oils that can help kill very toxic bacteria in our bodies that otherwise might kill us. We're also going to talk about what is in certain foods that can make a difference for our heart and thinning our blood naturally. A lot of people are taking aspirin. There's a side effect to aspirin, and I'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about the current scandal in China where they're finding out that they've been manufacturing probably the world's largest supply of vaccines. A lot of our vaccines come from China, or actually manufactured in China, even though they're owned by American companies, and they're finding people are getting sick. They're getting bad lots. Also, there's an antibiotic catastrophe being hid from the public. And Dr. Joseph Marcola wrote about it. I liked what he had to say, so I'm going to share that with you. And time permitting, I'm going to get to why is the mainstream media, and specifically those who say they're championing human rights like MSNBC and all of its self-righteous journalists, why are they not personally visiting Yemen and showing the plight of the Yemenis? We will. Now, I just want to let you know that some of the photographs that we'll be showing you during that segment are extremely disturbing. So you may not want to see it, but this is what we, the American people, are paying for, what our President Trump is condoning instead of condemning. It shows you the degree of depravity of this administration and people both on the left and right. It wouldn't have mattered whether it was Hillary Clinton in office. It would have mattered had Jill Stein or an independent been in office. This would never have happened. I'm going to have a commentary later today about the millennials and how you hold the future in your hands. We, the older generations, many of the people in my generation created the mess that you're now faced with, but how we should be working together to create independent parties breaking away, walking away from the Democrat corporate machine and the Republican corporate machine. They're both equally guilty when it comes to honoring who pays them and not the American public. So we'll deal with that. I have three interesting video clips, one from George Carlin on dying. I think you'll appreciate it. But also, I'm going to play you two clips, short ones. One's only a few seconds long, about Obama. Why? Because it seems as though what he said that should really be indefensible and challenged, no one did. And when we see it today, it's challenged. Now, rightly so, it should be challenged. Why wasn't it then? What does this tell you about complicity in covering up crimes against humanity? So we're going to do that. And also today, and this is going to be a tough one, and I'm not going to give my opinion until I hear yours. It's about pedophilia and how they're trying to normalize it. All over the internet now, there's an effort underway, and it's an effort, and it looks coordinated to me, to make it acceptable to believe that pedophilia is something you're born with. You're predisposed to it. I will hold my thoughts, but I want you to call in and share yours. We invite opinions on this program. 888-874-4888, but don't call until you've seen the clip. I'm going to show you a TED conference clip from a professor, from a scientist, who says that pedophilia is normal and we shouldn't discriminate. As a result, there's a whole movement now to get pedophilia accepted and brought into the gay and lesbian and trans community, and therefore defended. So if you were to, in effect, challenge pedophilia, then you'd have the full wrath and fury of the gay movement and the trans movement coming back at you. It's very clever what they're doing, and they may get away with it. So we'll see. But when a society goes to the level of accepting that pedophilia is a choice, or you're born with it, or you have no control over it, boy, have we some lessons to learn. And I'll take on the issues that are important, no matter how controversial, because these are the ones we need to speak about. Also, why is it that sexual abuse is rampant in the United Arab Emirates, controlled prisons in Yemen that the United States and CIA oversees, rampant, and we'll have a testimonial about it, and yet you won't hear a single word about this in the American media? So sexual abuse is not okay. If it's in the workplace, it's not to be talked about. If it's in the prison system, if you're incarcerated, it just comes with it. And if it's a foreign country, you can do anything to a person. Who cares? Wow. Are we really that far down the rabbit hole in our lack of ethics? I'll deal with that. So you see, we take on a lot of topics. We always start with the latest on health and healing. This is from the major Saudi Arabia university, Najran, and it says this, quote, this is from their research paper. Various plant extracts have great potential against infectious agents and can be used therapeutically. This study was carried out to evaluate the antimicrobial, that means something that would kill harmful bacteria, a peppermint extract, the Mentha piperita, against 10 very strong multi-drug resistant pathogenic bacteria. And they found that the peppermint was able to destroy all kinds of really serious pathogens that if you got one of these pathogens, you could die, because a lot of these are ending up antibiotic resistant, like MRSA. So think of that. Peppermint oil. Now you can get peppermint leaves and put them in dishes. I like to put peppermint into a salad, and where you make a beautiful salad, and you put pomegranate seeds in it, those little red juicy orbs, and then you put peppermint leaves, like a cupful of peppermint, and you blend it in, and you put some coconut oil and olive oil with toasted sesame seeds, and you toss it. And it's a delicious, very exotic salad, because these are tastes that your mouth is not used to, but the peppermint's what really punches it up and gives it something unique. In any case, that same peppermint, the extract of it, is powerful. So just put that on your natural medicine chest list of things you should have, like wild oregano oil, olive leaf extract, colloidal silver, manuka honey, bee propolis, looks like a grease is what it looks like. Tastes like grease too. And now add oil of peppermint, because it's that strong and that good for you. I would also say oil of cinnamon, which is extremely good. Every diabetic, pre-diabetic, and overweight person should be having cinnamon every day, because it's so good at controlling blood sugar. From Ranger Center for Economic Research, Norway, researchers find our IQs are dropping since the 1970s. And this was given at the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Wonder why. It doesn't say why, but boy, it says that they are really dropping. So here's a question for you. Why do you believe since the mid-1970s, our IQs are dropping. At the same time, since the mid-1970s, a few other things have happened. Our environment is in decline. Lobbyists are controlling what is taught in school, in the curriculums. They're teaching doctors not about nutrition or environmental science or psychoneuroimmunology. They're teaching about drugs, pharmacology. The diet has changed. Exercise levels have changed. Computers have changed our lives. Social media has changed our lives. Junk food diets have certainly changed. Our attention spans have changed. Our commitment to higher character values and ideals and morals have changed. Our caring about our society, our neighborhood has changed. So now we add in there, our IQs have changed. Your thoughts, as your calls come in, I'll take them. 888-874-4888. And I want to take calls throughout the day because I chose not to have a guest so that you could have a chance. Hong Kong has the longest life expectancy in the world. This is the Japanese Ministry of Health and Welfare. And it says, quote, the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare released their Global Life Expectancy Report on July 20th, and the results show that both men and women in Hong Kong have the longest life expectancy in the world. They're averaging for women 87.6 years and for men 81 years. Swiss men and Japanese women tie for the second longest life expectancy in the world. Okay, that's good. In America, we're not even the same league. Whoa. And there are a couple other places like the island of Crete actually has the longest lifespan in the world. And there's some villages, if you didn't take a whole city, but you took a town, they used to be in Hunza, in the Hunza Kut Valley in the Himalayas, about 10,000 feet up. But now it's on the island of Crete. Now, if you've been to Hong Kong, you know it looks like a condensed Manhattan, except about 100 times more lights and signs. The whole city's just aglow all the time. And there's an incredible variety of food and a lot of healthy food. They eat a lot of fish, fresh caught, seaweed, root vegetables, lots of salads, lots of fermented foods. They probably, I'm guesstimating, between all their misos, and you could go into a store and get 100 different types of miso. Probably about 10 billion probiotics that are good for your gut every day. They actually have more quality time spent at home than the average American does. The average American left over 400 million days of holiday or vacation that they didn't take. We're working an average of 50 hours a week. That's average. Some people are working 60 to 70, especially entrepreneurs or small business people and independent contractors. Now, there's some people in the United States that don't work at all. So when you consider someone working part-time, 5-10 hours, then you see how many hours of the average person who's working, wow, it could easily go 60 hours. Most of the people I know work 60 hours. So in other countries, that's not the case. They take far more time to spend in leisure. And what's interesting, when you travel, and you should, wherever possible, and it's not good to travel in the summertime. It's the worst time to travel around the world. Best time is in the fall. And one of the best places to travel is Spain, and Morocco's good, Jordan, France, and travel into the country. And one of the best things to do is take a vegan cruise. They have these river cruises where, for example, in France, it'll go down the main river of France, and you stop at all the vineyards and the small towns and see all the craftspersons, and it's just delightful. And you eat healthy food, really gourmet vegan food, and it's not expensive. About around $1,000, $1,300 for the whole trip and the boat and the food and everything. In any case, what you'll see is people there will explain that they look forward to doing nothing. They really enjoy leisure time. And leisure time means they're relaxing. They're hanging out. They enjoy the idea of not always thinking about doing something or being busy in their mind. They have to rush to get something done, or they're always on deadlines. They don't have the same pressure in Europe and the Mediterranean and the Middle East to do things under artificial timelines. We are constantly in a race against time. And yet, these are all artificial races. The real race that we're losing is to clean up our environment, to stop global warming from overreacting as it is now. A little later today, I'll have Richard Gale give you an update around the world of what's happened with the environment just the last week. It's unbelievable. None of that is playing out with any discussion about what responsibility do we have, what responsibility does this president and this Republican-dominated government have, especially since that Republican-dominated government has historically been anti-environment. Do you know the last president of the United States that really cared about the environment? Forget Bill and Hillary Clinton. They were co-presidents. Bush, forget him. I don't think he could spell it. His father certainly didn't care. Gerald Ford didn't care. Jimmy Carter. And before Carter, Dwight Eisenhower. Wow. Wouldn't you think that the most important position in the world, they'd care about the world that we live in and its sustainability? Not when people are stuffing your pockets full of cash or your bank accounts or your election getting back into focus. So we're going to deal with that. Tomorrow I'm playing you an audio clip you're really going to love. This is so rare. So tomorrow is going to be interesting because this audio clip tomorrow, video and audio, you see him, is two new legislators. I think one's from Iowa and one's from Kansas, to Congress. And they explain how everything there is bought and paid for. Everything is pay to play. And as one who was a former district attorney says, and you'll hear him say this, if I did this in my state, I'd be in prison. And yet here it is normal. I didn't know this. I didn't know you had to pay money to get on a committee. And depending upon the committee you got on, they have A, B, and C committees. And the people who don't pay go on the lowest committees, like the Veterans Affairs Committee and the Highway and Bridges Committee. And the reason why? Nobody cares about bridges and highways. There's no lobbyist for them. They're not going to put money in your pocket. But if you're from banking or something important, you're expected to raise each election cycle like $500,000, $1.5 million. And you have to pledge to raise that money. Behind the scenes look that you've never seen before of how corrupt, utterly corrupt our entire government is. Our entire political process is one giant cesspool. I've said it 1,000 times. It's true. I'll continue to say it. Thank goodness we have a few people, or at least on enough to tell us that. University of Bristol. They're saying that depression and antidepressants are associated with an increased risk of VTE. That's not good. So if you're taking antidepressants for your depression, which I do not recommend because they don't actually cure anyone. There's never been a case in the scientific literature that I could find. I'm doing a new documentary on this calling Manufacturing Madness. I've been working on it for about 6 years. I'm in the final stages of finishing it. I studied all the scientific literature. I can't find any legitimacy for giving antidepressants or antipsychotic medication. And one of the side effects of antidepressant medication is, you guessed it, depression. One of the side effects of anti-anxiety medicine is anxiety. One of the side effects of anti-depression and anxiety medicine, suicide. Let's add something to it. VTE. VTE stands for venous thromboembolism. And that's what you can die from, an embolism. Whoa. And this was done by the academics at the Musculoskeletal Research Unit, University of Bristol. and published in the Annals of Medicine, peer-reviewed journal. Just remember that the next time you take an antidepressive medication, where you should be going to people who are humanistic, certified, licensed psychologists. And there's a list of humanistic psychologists, like Professor Henry Grayson. There are a lot of people like him who work with you based upon distortions in your perceptions. Help control the perception, you change your reality. Drugs don't do that. This I found interesting. This says from Washington University, published in Journal of Experimental Psychology, General, quote, unless you spot changes, most life experiences are fabricated from memories. I'll repeat that. Most life experiences are fabricated from memories. Quote, you may not be able to change recent events in our lives, but how well we remember them plays a key role in how our brains model what's happening in the present and predict what is likely to occur in the future. Quote, memory isn't for trying to remember. It's for doing better the next time. So what this article is saying here, and I read the whole thing and I found it spot on. Almost everything from our past we change. We can make a traumatic effect non-traumatic. We can make a good experience in our life bad. We can make everything better or worse than it actually was, and we can take it out of its context because we're no longer living in the same context, the same circumstances, the same place possibly. It's different people in our lives. And hence we have to change our memories in order to better adapt to where we're at in this moment. And that's why people's memories are so unreliable. I remember the best example of this, at least in my life, was when there was a case of child molestation, and the longest court case at that point in California history and the most costly, where a family named the McMartins, I think it was Bucky McMartin and his mother, father, sister, were all indicted and tried for serial sexual molestation of children. And it kept growing and growing and growing. It got to the point where it was absolutely absurd, where they were alleging that I think it was over 70 children had been molested. Now, mind you, this is a school that's all glass. So every office and every classroom you can see into every other one. But they had allegedly at one point taken children on planes to the desert, to satanic rituals and sacrificing of animals. And none of it was true. At the end, even though all the newspapers, and especially the New York Daily News newspaper editors, had them all guilty and everyone had destroyed their reputations, they were found innocent of all charges. And it went back to a sociologist who had convinced, and then we got the tapes. Finally, the tapes came out. Someone found that in the room where the psychologist or the sociologist was talking with this little boy, that he had said nothing had happened. Nothing had happened, over and over and over again. And then the psychologist says, but you realize such and such said it happened, and another little girl said it happened, and all your friends said it happened. And then he said, okay, yeah, it happened. But it didn't. Children are extremely capable of fabrication. They're neither innocent nor honest when it comes to the accuracy of their memories. And there was just the best example ever. That immediately followed another crisis in America consciousness with fabricated false memory syndrome, where everybody kept remembering things that happened and in point of fact hadn't, but they had been encouraged by so-called experts and memory experts, retrieval of your lost memories. Yes, you were, in fact, a close friend of mine at that time, and we ceased friendship because of this, because I knew the family. And this so-called trauma expert had convinced this person that she had been sexually molested by her gynecologist at age of 3, and her father didn't do anything about it, and her mother. So she went on a hate campaign against her father and mother, who were the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And I said, you didn't remember this. You can't block these memories. This is all myth. And we did this on the show. We brought in all these experts showing this is all nonsense. But America gets into these whole crazy notions and takes it as far as they can. So now this report's coming up showing what you're doing right now, no matter where you're at or what you're doing, you're using your past memories to help you better survive in this moment. Therefore, you're going to alter those memories to your benefit. Whether they're accurate or not becomes irrelevant. That's the latest on health and healing. We are at 25 minutes into our program. We're going to take a brief break and come back, and we're going to give you an idea, since the media is not doing it, of what's wrong in the world and why we want you to know, because we are the one radio program that's done more comments and had more experts on talking more about the environment than any other radio program in the world. So back in a moment to give you the latest update of what you should know.
The girls got plenty good loving. Ask me how I know, and I'll tell you so. Who used to be my girl? I respect her. When she was mine, I used to neglect her. Oh, she wanted more than
I'd like to welcome all of you, and we have in studio right now Richard Gale. Richard is one of our scholars in residence, our leading scholar and producer of the program. And we wanted to show you what the media is not exploring, how bad it is. Now here's the cognitive disconnect, Richard. We're sitting in an air-conditioned studio in the middle of Manhattan. We walk out, everything's okay outside, a little rain, then sun. We can go by Center Park is green and lush, Prospect Park, Van Cortlandt Park. We don't have any problems here right now. But all around the world, there are problems. Around the United States, there are problems. But we seem to be disconnecting ourselves from other people's problems. Like, that's your problem, not ours. And I'm very concerned because, to me, we only manifest our spiritual being when we care about other people, even if we can't touch them, see them, they're there. And if they're suffering or having adverse effects, shouldn't we be committed to doing something about it? So take us around the world right now and the United States and show us what's happening because of global warming that the Republicans have been in institutional denial of. And the Democrats have at least acknowledged it but haven't done anything about it.
Okay. Some of the figures I'll give, they may not seem like very high temperatures to us, perhaps, or especially if you're listening from the southern part of the United States or in Southern California. But for these areas, they're extremely high. They're not accustomed to these kinds of temperatures, and of course, their electrical grids and everything are not prepared for those kinds of temperatures. So some of the figures I'd give, for example, like in Quebec, with the combined humidity, well, this is extremely high, 116. This is in Quebec.
That's a record, isn't it?
Right, and I live in the Berkshires, which is only several hours away from Montreal. And but we're not experiencing anything like that of what they're having right now. Japan right now, 106. That's a world record for Japan. Now, 106, we've hit that here, but not in Japan. They're a more northern climb actually, and then in Tokyo hitting over 104 degrees. That's the first time going over 40 degrees centigrade. in Japanese history.
Dozens dead,
and mostly elderly. Of course, it's the elderly that are become most affected. They'll just fry in their apartment somewhere. The Caucasus. So this is southern Russia, which is a mountainous region. Like Georgia, for example, is hitting 104. Algeria has reached 124. Now, they're claiming that that's the highest in Africa's history, but I did find that Tunisia reported 131 back in the 1930s, though. There was 131, whether that's a reliable figure or not. And I think last year we saw that Kuwait, well, that's not technically part of Africa, but had hit 134, wasn't it, I think, in Kuwait?
Give you an idea.
128 hit Iraq.
As an athlete, we are prevented from racing, including world-class athletes, if it goes above 96 degrees. You're talking about people walking outside to go to the store, and a lot of these people in these African and Middle Eastern countries, they don't all have air conditioning. They don't have fans. They don't have water. So there's a lot of death that's unreported, but if you put the average American in 131-degree temperature, they die.
They die. And we don't recognize, and nobody acknowledges or even speaks of the fact that the stress on your electrical grid when you have high temps. So you're actually producing more greenhouse gases as it gets hotter.
Yeah.
So we don't speak about that, because you are burning off more energy and you're relying more on it. We're seeing this fires throughout Scandinavia, mostly in Norway and Sweden. They're going all the way up to the Arctic Circle. There were, last year there were all the fires in Greenland, and earlier this year in Greenland. Greece is having its wildfires. 60 people have died now.
74.
74 now, and so it's
and
all
do you know
around.
Did you see how they're dying? What's interesting, I was supposed to be in Greece right now as part of that group to help
with the Syrian
refugees in the camps and creating the diet for them. And because of the coming back to New York and being delayed finishing the filming, which we're now finished with our new documentary, I couldn't go to Greece for that 10 days. I'd be right there. They're being incendiaried in their own cars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that. How do you burn to death in a car?
Right.
And yet here's a highway, and I saw the picture. You probably saw the same photograph.
Yeah.
A whole highway, everyone burned to death in cars, and they're running into the ocean. Did you see people running into the ocean?
Going into the ocean to cool off, yeah, right.
Where's the news? This is a major deal.
Well, I want to get to that. But the other thing is Sydney, 77 degrees. Now, that doesn't seem like much, 77 degrees. But this is their winter.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, the southern hemisphere is experiencing their winter now. So that's 20 degrees above average at this time of year in Sydney, Australia. And so we could go through. There's the Oman. There's the flooding, Laos.
Yeah, the dam broke.
The dam broke.
All the villagers in the whole area, they were unprepared for it.
But I want to deal with what the media, because this is where the real negligence that's almost criminal is. And Media Matters last year, which is a good, reliable source. So Media Matters is a major watchdog group. They review what the New York Times and Washington Post and each of the major television networks, what they report, and they determine the accuracy. They looked at 2017, all your major networks, so ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and PBS, had a total of only 260 minutes. That would be like just over 4 hours devoted to climate change. But when Grist looked at that same report, as far as segments specifically dealing with climate change science, or certain extreme events outside of the politics, they found it was only 50 minutes. So that's 50 minutes throughout the network.
50 minutes, under an hour.
Minutes.
Huh?
That's throughout the 5 networks.
In the entire year of all the mainstream television media in America. That's just a disgrace.
And this is what's more disgraceful. There were 95 segments. meaning that on average, if you're looking, okay, we'll take the 260 minutes, but that's just over 2 minutes per segment. 94 of the 95 were on Sunday programs.
Wow.
Sunday programs when there's least, or late evening news, or late evening. Only 4 segments throughout were actually dealing with climate change and extreme disasters, meaning that, we had the hurricane season. So the networks were really ignoring. They talk about they talk about what the consequences of the extreme storms and the hurricanes, but not the scientific association with the climate change. Actually, CBS and PBS are the only 2 of the networks that actually report on science. But in every one of their segments, they also had a person on who flatly refused and denied climate change as well. For their this is what's called balanced.
There's nothing
networking.
balanced about that.
No, right. Of the 95 climate coverage reports, 85% of those were connected with Trump policies.
Of course.
Right. And in the majority of the cases, there's that little clip of Trump calling climate change a hoax. And 37% of those, the networks didn't make any attempt to refute them, the claims. So this really gives you kind of a sense and idea of how much, we're being kept in the dark by corporate media.
Also, I believe we're not being, the governors and the major media in states that are immediately in the United States affected by climate change are not being fully honest. Because if they were, the governor of California would already have had a national emergency program to start relocating people from the inhospitable, non-sustainable areas of California to more sustainable areas of California, Northern California, and other states. They'd be cooperating with Minnesota and with Indiana and with Vermont and Massachusetts, but they're not.
No,
the same with state of Florida. Now, I am just now in the final stages of recovery from my animal sanctuary ranch down in Florida. It has been a challenge you can't believe. I'm taking photographs in 2 months when I return of the before and after. Now, if I didn't have the skills of being able to operate heavy equipment and being a farmer, then this place would still look like a dead zone, as my neighbors' homes do. There is no government insurance. You have to buy private insurance, and the premiums are through the roof. And then they're denying if you don't have water damage, but you only have hurricane damage, then they're only going to cover for wind damage. They play these games with you, and yet most of the damage is water damage, but it was due to the hurricane. They're denying coverage. They even did it in my case. I sued them, and I just won. But think of the people that don't think about that. Now, you go up and down the streets all over Florida, every community in Florida, no exceptions, you're going to see homes with tarpaulins on them. The next storm that comes, those tarpaulins are going to be blown off in a heartbeat, and if you have a Category 4 or 5, you'll see the greatest loss of property in American history, because we had 7 to 9 million Floridians move out of the state and come back. And now the question is, how many times you're going to have things destroyed and come back to it? And we're not dealing with that. Oregon has 36 fires today all over the state. Washington State has it. California has fires. And, of course, Colorado is just a basket case of problems. 2 weeks ago, they had the highest fire in American recorded history. 300-foot-high flames. 300 feet. How do you fight a 300-foot-high flame? And the fire inspector at that time says, you don't. There's no machinery. There's nothing we can do. We have to let it burn out. All those homes burned. Now you're looking around the world seeing how many homes were destroyed by that flood and that fire, and how many farms. In New South Wales, most people think that's not in Wales.
No, in Australia.
Australia.
Right.
A farmer was pleading for help yesterday. I posted it on my Facebook page. He has to go out and kill all 1,200 of his sheep because he has no food. All the drought has destroyed all the grass, and they're not helping the Australian government. I can't stand the Australian government. I think it's utterly inept and completely politicized, but it should be helping those farmers. Mm-hmm. But at the other end of that, it's one way for people to stop eating meat. It's a terrible place to get to, but farmers are now abandoning farms. Now, I believe they shouldn't abandon those farms. They can be converted into organic farms, which are sustainable. And I've told farmers I'll work with them. I teach organic farming. But they're going through pain right now. And the younger people growing up on a farm, seeing the suffering and stress of their parents, they don't want to go through that.
I have no interest.
They're abandoning farms. So we're going to, next Tuesday night, on the Progressive Commentary Hour, Richard is putting together one of the finest panels of environmentalists from around the world. And we're going to show you the problem and the solution. We're going to show you what you can do for at least the tipping points that have not yet tipped. There's nothing in the world anybody can do for the dozen or more tipping points that have tipped. But it's from our position, we're looking at this, and we're seeing the iceberg ahead. And we're going in and saying to the captain and his crew, you got an iceberg coming. And they're saying, what do you want for dinner? We're saying, no, you're not paying attention. The average person is so caught up in the minutiae of their own life, they're not paying attention to the environment, and you best do this. We're going to deal with best places to live, the safest places to live, the best quality of life, and why. On an environmental basis. This is not about the best jobs for family and singles and the lowest taxes. This is about survival. And so I'm right now, by the way, I'm rebuilding. I'm doing things like they're inexpensive, like a concrete block, right? It's $250, $2.50. And around my water tanks and my electrical supply that feeds my solar system, I'm putting an 8-foot concrete wall. You put rebar in, you put your footer in, which is easy. Then you put your stone blocks down, then you put your rebar, your piping in, then you pour it with concrete. You could have a 200 or 300 mile an hour wind. It's not going to hurt it. It's not going to hurt it. Because the first thing that goes, your electric and your water. This way, and I'm telling people, put all of your generators up at least 5 foot off the ground, because a surge can go 5 feet, and there goes your generator. Get propane tanks, ideally. Get a buried a 2,000-gallon propane tank. So if nothing else, a 2,000-gallon propane tank for a 2,000-square-foot house with normal electrical needs would last you about 5 months. Get 55-gallon drums. Put them away from the house in a concrete make yourself a little bunker or a little silo that's out of concrete, and you put 55 gallons of gasoline, 55 gallons of diesel, so that you've got for your car, you've got it for your generator, and because you're not going to find any gasoline at any filling station, the things you need, get and put it in storage so you have it. Get a trailer. You can buy a trailer for $800, brand new. Have it so if you need to get out because of a fire, and you know the fire's coming, load up your most valuable stuff and get it out. We're not doing this.
No.
I mean, I just saw on the news a woman says, we lost everything. Right. But the fire was here for a week. Yeah. You had 7 days. We didn't get out with anything.
Right.
It's this mindset.
What I'm finding, though, it's not to say that the news, I gave these statistics, it's not to say that the networks are not reporting climate. What they're not reporting, if you're in California, you're going to hear constantly about these fires. What they're not reporting is the association of these events with climate change, thereby keeping us under this soporific belief that it's normal. And that's what it's really about. It's normal. Because when I did look, I did see another chart from 2009 to last year. The number of reporting on climate change being human-related has consistently dropped. It's dropped every year. And so it is this, you can consider intentional on the network's part or whatever.
Of course it's intentional.
Of course it is. But
here's one reason why.
Keep it as being normal. This is just normal.
This is from Think Progress, from Joe Romm. Quote, Fossil fuel industry spent nearly $2 billion to kill U.S. climate action, new study shows. Industry has out-lobbied environmentalists 10 to 1 on climate since 2000. Legislation to address climate change has repeatedly died in Congress, but a major new study says that the policy deaths were not from natural causes. They were caused by humans, just like climate change itself is.
Yeah.
So that's why California has a lot of natural gas and oil wells out there. They pay a lot of money to legislators. This shows you the power of lobbying.
Yeah.
This is from FAIR, a very good organization. This is from Adam Johnson, quote, "It's been over a year since MSNBC has mentioned U.S. war in Yemen." All right? We're going to do a program on Yemen next week. I just want to, for a moment, I'm going to ask Jesse, I want you to put up on the screen, and again, I warn you, these are horrific pictures to look at, but the United States and our Congress, our CIA, the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the National Security Advisor are all personally responsible for what is being done as genocide in Yemen. And MSNBC and those dancing clowns over there are not touching the story. We will. And we'll show you. Take a look at some of these pictures. Look at that. This is from starvation. This is just horrific. And unless we see these, unless we realize we, the United States, that little punk of a government over in Great Britain, they're causing this. This is France. Look at this. What if that was your child? So where is the Me Too movement for helping save the children and the women of Yemen? And on top of that comes this. This is from Associated Press from Cairo. The tortures followed a schedule. Beatings on Saturday, torture on Sunday and Monday. The next 3 days were the same routine. On Friday, it was time for solitary confinement. Sexual abuse is rampant in the United Arab Emirates controlled prisons in Yemen. Once again, these are our allies. We're providing them with their planes. The CIA is providing with the torture. We're doing all this. The United States taxpayer is paying for this. So if we're against sexual abuse, which we should be, if we're against sexual violence against women, which we should be, you shouldn't have to have a law to tell you the moral imperative to stand up for that which is against all moral value, and that is sexual assault or sexual discipline against someone. Then why are we not saying something when our allies are sexually abusing people in prisons in Yemen and then starving the citizens who are not in prison? Thank you, Richard, for coming in. We're now going to take you directly to a professor. I want you to see this. And, Richard, have you watched this segment about the professor, the scientist, who is justifying pedophilia?
Oh, yes. I did.
Disgusting, isn't it? I want the people to see this. This is how they're trying to legitimize pedophilia and then bring it in to the movements so it can be protected under their umbrella. Watch this, please.
Let me tell you about Jonas. Jonas is 19 years old. He studies law in Munich. In his spare time, he likes to play soccer. Jonas has a secret which he thinks he cannot share with anyone, not even with his best friend or with his parents. He's just too afraid of anger, rejection, and repulsion. Jonas knows that he has to suppress his sexual drive for his entire life. And he also knows that there will never be a loving and fulfilling partnership that he can enter. Because Jonas is a pedophile. He's only attracted to female children between the ages of 6 and 12 years. But since he's aware of the consequences for the children, he has never given in to his sexual drive. What is pedophilia? And what is it not? In the ICD-10, the international classification system for illnesses, pedophilia is coded as the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. It is listed under the sexual disorders. Whether the persistent occurrence of sexual thoughts and feelings for pre-adolescent children have been acted upon or not is not relevant to the diagnosis. Like every other sexual orientation, pedophilia can have different characteristics. For example, it can be heterosexual, it can be homosexual, bisexual. Some pedophiles are exclusively attracted to children. Others are not exclusively attracted to children, but they're also sexually interested in adults. But their main sexual interest lies within children. Only if this main sexual interest is given, we talk about pedophilia. The vast majority of all pedophiles are men, about 99%. Within the male population, 1 to 2% are considered to be pedophiles. This translates to about 60 million people worldwide. This is as much as the population of Italy or of South Africa. Therefore, pedophilia is not an irrelevant phenomenon we can't simply ignore. Chances every one of you knows at least one pedophile are higher than that you don't know anyone. We haven't found out yet why pedophilia occurs. There are biological, social, and psychological factors to it. It occurs unrelated to social economical status and unrelated to educational level. So generally speaking, anyone could be born a pedophile. It is crucial to understand the difference between pedophilia and child sexual abuse, which is illegal and must always be. Pedophilia is only the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. The difference between child sexual abuse and pedophilia becomes very obvious when we look at scientific studies. Think about it for yourself. What do you think? What percentage of child molesters are pedophiles? Have a guess. Is it 20%, 40, 60, maybe even 80%? In fact, scientific studies indicate that only 20 to 30% of all child molesters are pedophiles. The vast majority of perpetrators are not pedophiles, but they're sexually interested in adults. Children can easily become victims of child sexual abuse because of their loyalty and because of ease of access. For example, a stepfather might abuse a stepdaughter because he feels anger or jealousy towards her mother. Not every pedophile abuses children.
Okay. You heard her say that about 30% of child abusers are pedophiles. It goes on, but you can watch it for yourself because I'm going to take some calls, 888-874-4888, on this topic. It's a very important topic. What she goes on to talk about is that you're born a pedophile. They're trying to now suggest that it's in your genes, that you're born, you have no choice. There's no freedom of choice here. You are born a pedophile. Now, whether you can control those urges and not sexually abuse someone, though they just said 30%, up to 30%, 20-30% are, and whether those statistics are accurate or not, I do not know. This is at the stage where we must discuss this because I see the effort that is being made to legitimize pedophilia as a normal condition, and that we don't want any movement co-opted as cover for pedophilia. Thank you all for your listening. I look forward to sharing more tomorrow. Have a nice day.